I think, honestly, at this point, it's just my eye is trained to see somebody's skin tone and just kind of pick the foundation that would suit them. For her, as you can see, she runs a little bit more towards gold than pinks. So I would choose something with a yellow undertone. Hi, I'm Danny, and we're going to be doing a no makeup look on this gorgeous model. First, I like to start with a moisturizer. I use CeraVe. It's super lightweight. I'm gonna use two pumps of this, and then I'm going to go in with a fluffy brush, something like this. You can also use your hands. I'm just going to use a brush on her. But if you're doing this at home, feel free to use your hands. And you just want a light layer of moisturizer. Be careful not to over apply moisturizer because then you're going to create too much slip for the products that you're going to apply on top. And for no makeup, I really am focusing just on the basics. So moisturizer, I would say instead of a primer, you can also use a hydrating primer. I would stay away from silicone-based primers or anything too heavy since we are going for that no makeup look, and those work way better with a more full coverage foundation. I'm just adding another pump of moisturizer to add a little bit to her chin area and just blend down to the neck. The key to no makeup truly is skin prep and also just your daily habits at home. So your skincare routine at home will have an impact on how little makeup you can apply and feel confident in using. Now I'm going to go in with a light foundation from a foundation palette, and I'm going to use this as concealer to spot conceal. And I know that it is a little bit deeper than her regular skin tone, but what you want to do is use something that is a little bit deeper so you can cover up redness. If you use a lighter concealer like you would use to brighten, you're going to make any blemish more noticeable. And I'm just using a small synthetic brush. Synthetic brushes are definitely the way to go when you're dealing with cream products. And I'm just warming this up on the palette with a little bit of friction to make it more malleable. And then I'm going to lightly spot conceal anywhere where there's a little bit of redness. And usually I like to start doing eye makeup first, but since we are doing a super natural look, that is not necessary because we won't have any fallout from the eyeshadow. You just want to use light stippling motions and blend out. And I'm just adding this anywhere that there is a little bit of redness. I'm not focusing under the eyes right away. I personally like to apply corrective concealer first for any blemishes, and then foundation followed up by a concealer under the eyes if necessary. Just getting a little bit of redness around the nose. And as you can see, it's already getting a little bit more neutralized. And just keep blending a little bit. You don't want any super harsh lines, but you do want to maintain the coverage. So make sure you're using tapping motions and don't blend with too much force or pressure. So now that we have this base of concealer for our blemishes, we're gonna continue and set this with a loose powder or a little pressed powder, it doesn't really matter. You just wanna create a barrier between the concealer and the foundation, especially the Cinema Secrets foundation needs to be set in between layers. I'm going in with a translucent powder and a fluffy brush and just tapping off any excess. And I'm going to lightly tap this onto where I applied the foundation. And you just want to lightly tap this into it, and it will create a nice barrier for when you apply the final layer of foundation. So I'm going to go ahead and use MAC Face and Body Foundation. This is a liquid foundation. I would give it a good shake before starting. And I love this foundation. It's super sheer, buildable up to a medium coverage, I would say. If you like something more full coverage, definitely not the one for you, but for a no makeup look, I think this is the perfect type of foundation. And you can either go in with a sponge or a brush. I definitely prefer a brush over a sponge. I like to finish it off with a sponge, start it with a brush. So I like a dense brush like this, and you're just gonna tap it into the foundation and then tap it onto the skin. And you don't have to use too much to start off with. Just go a little bit at a time. This foundation does have more of a sheen to it, so you're gonna get a really beautiful satin finish, very close to what your natural skin looks like. And this is why I said to not put concealer beforehand under the eyes, because if you use your foundation and that is enough coverage, for a no makeup look, you're not looking to add too much product. And we're gonna blend this down the neck. The beautiful thing about this foundation is that even though it looks like a little bit deeper than her skin tone, you actually can get away with using this foundation as your summer shade or your winter shade just because it is so sheer. And you always want to make sure you're also blending down to the neck. Now, when you're covering any blemishes, you want to make sure you're using, again, tapping motions. And if you still see them peek through a little bit, that's okay. We're doing a super natural makeup, and we can always go in with a little bit of powder to conceal it a little bit more. We're gonna keep blending and tapping a little bit more coverage into areas that you feel like you need them. For her, I'm focusing under the eyes and a little bit on the cheeks as well for a little bit added coverage. And if you feel like you don't need that much foundation, for example, I don't think she needs too much on her forehead, you can just use the excess foundation that you have on your brush and tap it on. I'm going to grab a tiny bit more of foundation. And so you have to add slowly. So I did the first layer first, and now I'm going in for a little bit more coverage. And that way you know you're not gonna end up with a cakey look or with too much foundation on your face. Blend that in. You can blend that into your hairline. And just make sure you're using light tapping motions. You don't wanna have too much pressure when you're blending to really get that more so like an airbrushed effect. And always make sure to also get your ears, because we tend to have a little bit of redness in our ears, and when we wear foundation, we want to make sure everything looks even. Going in with a little bit more coverage on her cheeks. And just tapping away. And this won't take you this long at home because I am explaining everything I'm doing. I'm going slowly so you can see, but once you master it, this can be like a 10 to 15 minute daily makeup routine. Adding a tiny bit more coverage. And you want to build slowly whenever you're doing a no makeup look, especially until you understand where you need less and more makeup. Look up. I always like to swipe a little bit of foundation on the eyelids. I think it refreshes the face, and then it's not as heavy as a full concealer on the eyelids. Adding a tiny bit more coverage for the last time over here. Getting the neck and a little bit of the ears as well. And now we're gonna move on to concealer and the rest of our products. For concealer, I'm going in with this concealer palette from MAC. And I'm just going to mix up a shade that I think will suit under her eyes. I'm gonna be very minimal with the amount of concealer that I apply because this makeup look is so fresh, we don't wanna cake on a lot of concealer. And I am making sure to really warm this up on my palette. You can warm it up on the back of your hands. And if you're using a liquid concealer, then you can just apply it directly from the wand onto your face. And I'm just gonna tap this on my palette just to grab a little bit and get rid of the excess. Look up for me. And I'm going to apply it just where she needs a little bit more coverage, in her inner corner and a little bit along the lash line, just to give that refreshed look to the eyes. And just a tiny bit on her eyelid. And people always ask me how to stop concealer from creasing. You really can't fully stop it from creasing throughout the day, but you can stop it from being so noticeable with a little bit of powder. So we will add some powder afterwards. And we're gonna do the same thing on the other eye. Just soft taps, not too much product, and start in the area that needs the most coverage. That way you're not having to blend all the product you applied towards that area. You're starting there and blending the excess product away from that area. You don't want to add coverage where it's not needed. I'm just adding a little bit of concealer to the eyelid to even it out. And I might even add a little tiny bit of concealer over these blemishes again, but very, very, very lightly tapping. You don't want to disturb the foundation you've already applied. And you can just add a little bit of concealer wherever you think needs a little bit of coverage. Always using a very light pressure to create more of a seamless blend. So we're done with the concealer and foundation. Now we're gonna move on to some cream products. I'm gonna go in with a nude stick blush stick. And I love a cream blush, especially for a no makeup look. I love bronzer as well, but I find for a no makeup look, I like just a tiny bit of bronzer at the end, and I wanna focus it on blush and luminosity on the cheeks. And again, I'm gonna go in with a synthetic brush. And you don't have to mix it on the back of your hand or anything. You can just apply it directly from the stick if this is yours. I'm just applying it like this because it is the most hygienic way to do it on various models. And we're going to lightly apply some on the top of her cheek, all the way to like here. And I'm using soft tapping motions to apply that blush. And as you can see, it's very light. It looks very natural, like flush from within. You don't want it to be too crazy. And sometimes I like to bring it up a little bit towards the temple. And we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Starting from the top, you want to start where you're going to apply the most product. So I like to start from the back and make my way to the cheeks. The benefit of using a big brush like this is that you can really get good blend and even use it like a little bit like a sponge and tap it in. And if you ever feel like you applied too much, you can just remove it with a foundation brush. Even your used foundation brush, you can use that over top the blush to make it a little bit less noticeable. We're getting close to the end. I think, honestly, blush, foundation, and concealer are the key staples of a no makeup look. Now we're gonna move on to the eyebrows, a little bit of lip, a little bit of mascara, and finish it off with powder. So there's various things you can do for a bit of a feathery brow. I usually use either a glue stick, which I know sounds crazy, but they're non-toxic and they're totally fine on your skin. You can use a glue stick, you can use hairspray, hair gel, brow gel. I personally really like hairspray when it comes to doing very natural no makeup looks. So I'm using the Got To Be hairspray on a spoolie. I'm going to saturate that with hairspray and then I'm going to just comb through the brows. It's not going to glue them down to the face the way I have mine, but it will give them some more hold. Especially if we're doing such a simple, clean makeup look, I think sometimes it's nice to keep the brows with their natural shape. It makes it look a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more fresh. We're gonna let that dry and then we're going to fill it in afterwards. And doing the same thing on this side, just combing through the brows. So the last step is powder, and then I'm going to go into the mascara after the powder. I'm going to blend out under her eyes once more with the brush we used. Close for me, please. Just to get those creases out of the way. And then with a brush and some blotting powder, this is the blotting powder from MAC, I'm going to apply a tiny, tiny bit of that under her eyes and on her eyelids. Just blending out those creases. Close. Turn towards me. And I'm going to blot that over here. Just gentle taps with that powder. Look up. And gentle taps with the powder again on this side. So that's how you're going to prevent it from creasing all day. It's still going to eventually crease. Our eyes move. So anyone that tells you that it's a creaseless concealer or creaseless anything, it's not true. You're gonna get creases, but you can avoid it by using a little bit of powder. And now I'm just going to lightly spot set her face. So for a natural makeup look, the key is to only set where you need to. For example, we have some lovely glow on the cheeks. We don't want to set the entire cheek. We're gonna start by setting in this area. I'm going to set where I already covered with concealer and foundation, just a little bit further over here. And I'm going to set the chin, over the lips. You always want to set over the lips because when we get sweaty, we sweat there. So you don't want to have a shiny upper lip because it won't look dewy. It'll just look like you were sweating. The nose is very good to set as well. Another part of the T-zone usually gets shiny, gets sweaty. A little bit more on the other side of the chin. And then as you can see, it's quite glowy on this area. I don't mind it. I actually really like the glow in this area, but I don't want glow here. I don't want glow at the nose. So I'm going to set that part. I'm going to set the middle of the forehead as well. And you can see how the shine is going away slowly, especially on camera. You'll be able to see it way better. But I still want to keep some luminosity, so I'm not going to set this part of the face here. And just slowly making sure that you're setting precisely and setting where you don't want any shine and keeping the areas that you want shine without any powder. Okay, we're gonna move on to mascara and lips. And usually I ask models to do their own mascara. It's just easier. People know their own eyes. They feel more comfortable. So I'm just gonna hand her a spoolie with some mascara and a mirror.
Up and down? Or both?
No, just up.
Just up.
Yeah, just do your upper lashes. When you're doing a no makeup look, I find lower lashes can look a little too heavy. And then I'm just gonna finesse it. I can add a little more. And show you, look down. A good way to do it is to roll it through the lashes. And you can also shake it from side to side a little bit when you're applying. You have gorgeous long lashes, so you don't even need that much mascara.
Thank you.
And now with a different spoolie, you're gonna go on to the other side because you don't want to double dip into the mascara. Obviously, if it's your mascara, go in with the same wand. And while she does that, I can show you the mascara I use. I love Essence mascara. It's affordable, it lasts all day. I find it doesn't flake too much on me. And what I like about it is that it's not waterproof because it makes it easier to take off my makeup at the end of the day. If you are looking for a waterproof mascara, they also have one, which is really good. And that's really good if you're somebody with really teary eyes or anything like that. We're gonna finish this look off with a little bit of something on the lips. And I'm going to go in with the Maybelline Superstay Matte Ink. I know that this looks a little intimidating for a no makeup look, but what I like to do is use a little bit of this and actually buff it into the lips. It will act like a lip stain. It will last all day, and you won't have to worry about reapplying as often as a lip gloss or a lip balm. Lip gloss looks beautiful, looks effortless, but actually it's a lot of effort throughout the day. You have to reapply after you eat. It comes off when you talk. So something like this, it's a good solution. And the way I like to do this is by grabbing a little bit of this lipstick onto a flat brush and applying that lightly on the lips. I'm not using too much lipstick and I'm not using too much force when applying. It smells so good. When applying this, and I'm just blending that on the bottom lip. And again, adding some to the top lip. And you just want to blend it in very softly. You can use your fingers, you can use a little brush. All we're doing right now is adding a little bit of color to the lips. I just grabbed a little bit more. And after I've applied that on her lips, I'm just going to clean up the edges a little bit with that first concealer brush we used and just go around her lips. Cleaning up any mascara fallout as well. The key to this is to wait after you've applied your mascara and get it a little bit dry, and then it'll come off a little bit easier. Perfect. There you go. I think, honestly, at this point, it's just my eye is trained to see somebody's skin tone and just kind of pick the foundation that would suit them. For her, as you can see, she runs a little bit more towards gold than pinks. So I would choose something with a yellow undertone. When I'm picking foundations, something like a face and body foundation, it's honestly a little bit more forgiving because you can pick any shade that's kind of in their range, and because it's so sheer, it'll suit them. I love this foundation on her. I noticed that she had a little bit of texture, but nothing crazy, not too much dryness, and overall just, I would say, normal skin with just a tiny bit of blemishes. So it made it quite easy to find a foundation to suit her. Face and body suits almost everybody. Now we're gonna move on to the second model, and it's gonna be very similar. We're gonna do a no makeup look. I'm gonna start with some moisturizer again. Around 2 to 3 pumps, put that on my palette. And using a synthetic brush, I'm just going to apply that to her face. And of course, you can feel free to use your hands at home if you're doing this on yourself. And if you're another makeup artist looking to learn some tricks, then you can use a brush or a sponge or wash your hands beforehand and ask the client if it's okay to use your hands. For this look in particular, it's going to be a no makeup look, but I do think I want to add a little bit of glow. So I'm just going to make sure that she is very well moisturized beforehand. Okay, I'm gonna put that on the eyelids and spread it down the cheeks. Add a little bit under the neck as well. And once you have all of that completed, we can go ahead and choose our foundation. I think for you, I probably wouldn't do too much spot concealing. I would probably just go in straight with foundation and see what I would need to conceal afterwards. So we're gonna go ahead and mix that up. And I have 2 palettes over here by Cinema Secrets. One is a light medium yellow beige, and the other one is a medium deep golden olive. I think I'm gonna look through them and see what would fit the best, and then create a mix that I think would fit her well. Then I'm definitely gonna go in with the light yellow beige palette and just grab a couple of these colors and mix them up on my palette. And I'm going to test them out as I go on her. So I think this might be a little too light, but we can always add something deeper. I think I'm going to go in with a deeper shade from this palette over here, just to give it that olive undertone. Just the tiniest bit. Now with a small synthetic brush, I'm going to tap that in, tap off the excess, and just test it. And I think this is actually the perfect shade. As you can see, it's blending in seamlessly. You can't really tell that she has foundation in this area. And I'm going to conceal a little bit around the nose. I think for you, we probably won't use a full face of foundation, and we're just going to go in with spot concealing and then blending it all over the face afterwards. Which I know I said I wasn't going to spot conceal, but I think it might be the better route in the end. You want to make sure you're getting like in between the nostrils, under the nose, and just blending slowly outwards. I'm gonna put a little bit under your eyes, look up. The good thing about a foundation like Cinema Secrets, because it is cream and it is a little bit thicker than a liquid, you can get away with using it as concealer, as foundation. So I'm using it as concealer under her eyes, and I will be using it as foundation on the rest of her face. Look up. Just blending that softly outwards and applying a little bit to the eyelids. Just make sure you're blending that out so you don't have any harsh lines. We're gonna go in here, look up, and lightly blend that. Do you have mascara on? Okay. Did you wear it yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes when you wear mascara the day before, it doesn't fully come off when you wash your face. And when you are applying a creamier foundation, you might get a little bit of it running. But the way to fix that is just grab a smaller brush and just blend it out, and you should be okay. I feel like with mascara and eyeliner, it's one of those things that it lasts like way longer than you want it to on your face. Sometimes when I wear black eyeliner, it's like 4 days that I'm still washing my eyes and it's not coming off. So don't worry, just blend that out. And now I'm going to blend out this foundation all over the rest of her face. I'm going to use a synthetic brush like this. I actually learned this from another makeup artist I used to watch on YouTube, and she would always use a little tiny synthetic brush like this for this type of foundation. So I'm going to warm up the product onto the brush first. Because this is a cream foundation, you really want it to be a little bit warm so it's easier to apply. And then I'm going to go in and just very lightly apply it on the rest of her face. As you can see, she doesn't really need much coverage. And if we're doing a no makeup look, there is no need to add coverage where it's not really needed. So I'm just evening, I would say. I'm evening the skin tone as opposed to adding coverage. I'm using little swirling motions, a very light hand, and just going along the perimeter of her face. I'm gonna add a little bit to the forehead and do the same thing. And we're gonna keep blending this all over the face while keeping it fresh. So not too much coverage, but just making sure everywhere has foundation so it is even. And I like to use very quick, light strokes so the foundation is still wet while I'm mixing and you're not getting any dragging or dry spots. Again, going in with a little bit more on her forehead, just to even it all out. Move your face up for me a little bit. Perfect. And then I'm going to blend it down towards her neck. You're not really going to get a demarcation line when you're applying foundation so minimally, but I always like to add a little bit just to keep the foundation continuous on her face. Okay, so now we're done with the foundation and concealer application, because if you don't have anything really to cover, don't stress. Don't think that because people do concealer, foundation, bronzer, contour, blush, that you have to necessarily do all those steps in your daily makeup routine. You can just do foundation and blush, foundation and bronzer, and still get a really beautiful look. Now I'm gonna go in with a little bit of a cream blush. I'm gonna use this one with Glossier, and it is super pink, but I love to add just a tiny bit on the cheeks. So I'm gonna start at the back of the cheek and just bring it in. And this is a super youthful pink. It looks gorgeous on a lot of skin tones. And it does have a little bit of glow to it, which will be really lovely on the skin. And as you can see, I'm not applying bronzer. I tend to stray away from bronzer when I'm doing very natural makeup looks. I find that it can look a little bit harsh versus blush is something that occurs naturally on our skin. So right now I'm just applying some blush and I'm doing the other side, and I'm gonna start by the temple and drag this down in stippling motions. And you can see it looks like it's coming from within the skin. It creates a really natural flush. I personally really like this type of shape of blush where you start up top on the temples and then come down in a kind of a C shape. I find that when you're doing on the apples of the cheeks, it can look a little bit dated. It can look a little bit old school when you do it right at the cheek. But I do sometimes like it if somebody has a very, very youthful face. Sometimes it's a little bit nice to add a little bit of blush on the cheeks to like liven them up a little bit. But in general, I like to keep them concentrated towards this area. So the color really depends on your skin tone. I think there's a few colors that work well with a variety of skin tones. So what I would say is you have to look at your undertone. If you're somebody with cooler skin tone, you don't want something like an orange. It won't favor you as much. But for example, somebody that has a warm, deep olive skin tone, something like an orange or a fuchsia will look really nice. Versus when you have a lighter skin tone, a baby pink, a cool pink would look really nice. And this pink over here, because it is so sheer, I find does suit quite an array of skin tones as well. Just want to make sure it is even. So I did pull this a little bit more towards the apple of the cheek, but you can see I'm still not doing it here. I want to keep this area clear of blush. Now I'm going to go in with a little bit of strobe cream. This is MAC's strobe cream. It's a hydrating lotion style of cream, but I really like it as a highlighter. It has quite a bit of sheen without being overpowering. So I'm going to apply a little bit on my palette, close this up, and use a synthetic brush to apply that on the high points of the face. I really like to use a fluffy brush like this. I'm gonna grab just the tiniest bit, nothing crazy, and just apply this on the high points of the face. I'm gonna dab it in with my finger a little bit and apply a little bit here. You can also use this under your foundation, but I find it works best over, just to if you want something a little bit more noticeable. Turn your face towards me. And we're just gonna blend that out. Add a tiny bit to the high points of the cheeks over here. Then I'm gonna go in with a sponge and just blend that into the blush. Turn towards me. And I'm also taking advantage of having a sponge to just even everything out. As you can see, I prefer to apply everything with a brush, but if you ever find you have a little bit of brush strokes or anything, you can even it all out with a sponge at the end. I find sponges really vary. I think the most popular is the Beauty Blender or any of that style of sponge. That is quite nice if you're doing makeup on yourself. The only thing I would suggest is make sure you're washing it after every use and letting it fully dry, because you don't want it to accumulate mold or bacteria inside of it. Because I am a makeup artist, I use disposable sponges only, and I find these over here, like the one I just used, are very good. You can wet them and it will expand as well, like a Beauty Blender. It just won't have the same round shape. And these are cheaper, but you do have to throw them out after every use, so it depends if you're somebody that wants to buy 2 beauty blenders every 2 months or just buy a bunch of these. I'm going to go ahead with brows now, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use the Got To Be Glued setting spray just to brush your brows up. I like to use 2 spoolies, 1 spoolie to spray the setting spray on and brush that through. And then 1 spoolie to kind of press that hairspray down into the eyebrows. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And you can tell she has pretty defined brows. So when you're doing a no makeup look, if you have brows like this and you don't really feel like you need to fill them in, don't feel obligated to. You can just leave them with a little bit of brow gel, and it actually creates a way more natural effect. However, I still think it would be very valuable to show you how to do your brows if you wanted to add a little bit. I'm going to use the Brow Palette by Anastasia. It's just a powder brow palette. This is, for me, it's the easiest as a makeup artist. It gives me every color. If you want to use a pomade or a different type of eyebrow product like a pencil, absolutely, you can feel free. I'm going to go in and use something along the lines of an ash brown. You can see something over here. It's going to be grayer. When you have dark hair, something gray is better than using directly going into black because your eyebrows are not going to be as dark as your hair. And I'm just going to lightly fill them in, starting with the corners. And using flicking motions. I don't want it to be too defined. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, just using light flicking motions and filling in any areas that are just a tiny bit sparse. Now I'm just making sure they're even. And you can give it one final brush with a spoolie. And for lipstick, I'm going to go again with the Superstay Matte Lipstick, and I'm going to use a deeper shade. This one over here has a little bit more of a warmer tone. And for somebody with an olive skin tone, a warmer tone is going to look beautiful and make her features all come together. And I'm going to use the same technique as before. I'm going to go in with a synthetic brush, put the lipstick on here, and just tap this in. I'm going to go in with a blending brush on top and blend that out as well. And I'm going to go in like this, just adding a little bit of color and blending. And I am using the smaller brush at the top lip just to be more precise, but I'm still making sure it's very light-handed. And now that I've smudged that in, I'm going to go back into the concealer brush we used at the beginning just to clean up around the lips. So what I would do would be to grab a big blending brush like this, and I would go in with a bronzer and just brush that through the eyelids. So let's find one. Perfect. So we have a bronzer over here. This one's by Thrive Cosmetics, and I'm going to tap my brush in, shake the excess product, open your eyes, and just add the tiniest wash. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the shape of the eye and just alongside the top crease near the eyebrow, blend it in as well. And it elongates the eye a little bit. I would probably go in with a bigger brush as well, just to blend that out even more. And you can see it just gives like the illusion of having, more makeup, just even by just having that little bit of bronzer, it looks like you have your eyes done. Close. Just gonna tap here, open, and go alongside the natural arch of her eye. And just bring it out. And are you okay with doing your own mascara? Perfect. Just it's always easier to do your own than to have somebody poking at your eye. There you go, and there you go. And that also is depending on preference. Let's say you have really straight lashes or you want a little bit more oomph, you can definitely curl your lashes. But just a little bit of mascara, or even just curling your lashes if you really want that super, super, super natural look. Perfect, thank you. We're gonna go ahead and set the rest of her makeup. I'm gonna go in with a small powder brush, and I'm just gonna use a translucent blotting powder. It's this one here by Makeup Forever. I'm gonna use my brush, tap that in, tap off the excess, and just go in the areas of her face where I think we could curb the shine. So we're gonna do the middle of the forehead, the nose, look up, under the eyes, look up, the chin as well, just like the whole T-zone area on top of the lips. And I know it's so beautiful, you have that glowy fresh makeup, you don't want to put powder on it. But the thing is that unfortunately if you don't set it with powder, it will move throughout the day. So just think that your natural face oils will bring it up to that glossy look later throughout the day, as opposed to not setting and then having your makeup come off. I'm avoiding the cheek area, this area, because I do like the luminosity of the cream blush. Turn towards me. But I'm setting her nostrils, her eyelids, on top of her brows, and just the rest of her face I'm gonna set with some light powdering, while leaving this cheek area very dewy. So I'm going to start with the next model, and I'm going to start the same way I started the previous models, with a little bit of moisturizer on her face. I'm going to do like 3 pumps of this CeraVe Moisturizer, and I'm going to go in with a sponge just to apply that all over her face. And you can use a brush, your hands, it doesn't really matter. I prefer hands and I'm doing my own makeup, so definitely take that advice and use your hands on your own face. It'll give you the most even application. Just making sure I'm getting that everywhere it needs to be. Around the nose. Can you look at me this way, please? Thank you. And just adding this to the cheeks as well, and tapping it a little bit under the under eyes. So I think for this look, we're gonna take it up a notch a little bit. You saw 2 very natural makeup looks. We're gonna keep it in the no makeup zone, but maybe add a little bit of a bold spot, whether it be a little bit more on the eyes or a bit of a darker lip. When we get there, we'll decide, but just something to give you an idea of how this type of makeup can look with a little bit more to it. While that absorbs, I'm going to see which foundation I'm going to use. I'm going to look into my medium deep golden olive and my light medium yellow beige again. And I'm thinking it's definitely going to be one from the medium deep golden olive. With my palette knife, I'm going to scrape a little bit of this color of the lightest and the middle shade, and I'm just going to mix that up onto my palette, really warming this up. And because she has really even skin, I think we're just going to go in and even up her skin tone with this foundation. Instead of adding some spot concealing, I'm just gonna do kind of conceal and apply like I did with the previous model. So I'm gonna go in with a synthetic brush, tap off any excess, and just see if this shade works for her. And you can see it's almost identical to her skin tone. It blends in seamlessly. We're gonna start with a little bit under the eyes and blend that outwards, just to cover any dark circles. And go around the nose. Grabbing just a tiny bit more, close your eyes. We're gonna go in onto the eyelids and tap some concealer in as well. Gonna add a tiny bit of concealer over here on the cheeks and below the eyes. Can you look up? Tap that in and drag any excess to other areas of the face that you want to add a little bit of coverage. So I'm adding some on the nose, on the inner corner of the eyes, and just blending that out. And I'm going to just even out the skin tone on the upper eyelid. And do the same thing on the other side, blend in a little bit. And I'm gonna go in with a synthetic brush and really blend that all out onto her face. I'm gonna use the same type of brush that I used previously and just warm that product up onto my palette. And using very light feathery strokes, we're just going to even out the whole face with this foundation. And I'm gonna blend that up onto her forehead as well. Just blend it into the hairline using light bouncy motions. Can you look towards me? Thank you. I'm gonna even up the cheeks. And as you can see, I'm blending and you can still see her normal skin. Like you can still see her skin peeking through the foundation, which is what we want. We want it to be very natural. You still want to have that skin texture and just dragging it along a little bit downwards towards the neck. Once we have that, we can go in with our blush. I personally am obsessed with this Nude Sticks blush. I'm gonna add a little bit of this blush to my palette and then we're gonna go in. What I like about this color is that it is very flattering to a lot of skin tones, but also it's a nude, so you can really amp up whatever else you're wearing around it. Just gonna grab the tiniest bit and apply from the top of the face over here and just stipple that downwards. And you can see I'm using cream products for this look. In general, when I'm doing a no makeup look, I prefer cream products. They tend to look like they're coming from within the skin as opposed to sitting on top of it. The good thing about blush is that it does serve a lot of purposes. You don't need bronzer if you already have blush. You can apply it if you love bronzer. So if you have it in a shape like this, you can see how it creates a little bit of contour without having to use contour and bronzer, just by adding the blush in this shape. Just stippling on a little bit more blush. And now we're gonna go into the eyebrows. I'm just gonna start by brushing through her eyebrows with a spoolie brush. And with my Anastasia brow palette, I'm gonna grab my little angled brush and I'm going to go into actually sculpting her brows a little bit. Just to give you some options, we have super natural makeup with the first one. We have a little bit of an oomph with the second one. And this one is still a very no makeup look, but we're gonna add a little bit of an extra something. And by adding a more sculpted brow, you are gonna make this look pop a little bit more. So what I would do for a natural eyeliner would honestly be to use an eyeshadow as opposed to a pencil or a liquid eyeliner. You're gonna get a way softer look while keeping it natural. I think a brown eyeliner will always be softer than a black eyeliner. This is the Viseart Neutral Mattes palette. It's the only eyeshadows I carry truly in my kit are Viseart. I think they are fantastic. They last all day and they have really great shades. So this is their Neutral Mattes palette. And I'm gonna go in with this brown over here, which is a deep brown, and mix it a little bit with this one over here just to neutralize it a tiny bit. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to look at the shape of her eyes. She has beautiful almond-shaped eyes, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna follow the line of her lower lash line, and we're just gonna do a tiny little wing. Close. First, I like to start by tapping the eyeshadow on, and I'm not going to line the whole eye. I'm starting mostly on the outer corner to keep it super natural. Open. Close. Open. Look at me. Close. And then I'm gonna buff that into the lash line. Now, if you wanna make it even a little bit more natural, you see that is too much eyeliner, you can always grab a different brush and just lightly buff it so it's a little bit more smoky. And buff it into the lash line. Open. But I think even something like this, you can see how she has a whole no makeup look, and this already adds a little bit of drama to the look. So we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. And again, just gonna buff that out. Just to keep it super, super natural. So I'm just buffing that in while keeping the sharpness of the tail of the wing there. Now we're gonna move on to setting the face and applying some bronzer. I'm gonna go in with this tan powder from Charlotte Tilbury and a real hair brush. I'm gonna tap that onto the face just to set the makeup and make sure that it's not moving throughout the day. Now that we're almost done the look, I'm gonna go in with a little bit of bronzer just to show you how that would look like. We're gonna start with this bronzer over here, and we can always deepen it if we need something a little bit deeper. I think I'm gonna grab a tiny bit of this and a tiny bit of the darker bronzer and shake off any excess. So for bronzer, when you're doing a no makeup look, I like to keep it towards the temples, a little bit over here, and like blend it into the hairline. And I'm going to add the tiniest bit just below over here where we applied the blush. Lightly blend that bronzer over here. Now I also like to add sometimes a little bit under the jaw. It's not super sculpting, but it will just blend everything together. And the same thing, we're just gonna tap that in here and tap it under the blush. And we're going to blend it out onto the temples, just to add a little bit more dimension. And what I like about blending using tapping motions is that it's way more forgiving and you're gonna get a smoother transition. I'm gonna go in with a synthetic brush and I'm just gonna tap it to blend that in together because we don't want it to be too obvious that we have bronzer on. We want it to look natural, and this will just give us like a little bit of shadow. Finally, we can finish up with some lip. And I say we switch it up and add a different toned lipstick from MAC. And I love this lip color over here. It's glossy, It's a little bit sheer, so I'm gonna add some of that onto my palette. And then we're going to apply it all over her lips. And it's super sheer, so you don't have to worry about using a lip liner or anything. You don't have to get it perfect. If you think I'm not a master of applying lipstick, that's fine. This one's super, super beginner friendly. And finally, we're gonna finish this all off with some mascara. It's always easier to have people apply their own mascara. Even on set, wherever I'm working, I find models will tend to ask me to apply their own mascara versus somebody trying to apply it for you. It's just an easier angle when you do it yourself. So I think that a cream blush is a staple when you're doing everyday makeup. It's really going to transition your look from looking too powdery. You're going to be able to look like you're glowing from within. My favorite one is this new 6 Nudies Matte. I use the color Buff. I find it goes along with a lot of skin tones, but they do have a lot of other beautiful colors that you can check out.
Okay, let me ask a few more questions. What does even natural makeup mean?
I think natural makeup can mean something different for everybody. I've had some people ask me for a natural makeup look and then show me a photo of Kim Kardashian. So to me, that wouldn't necessarily be natural makeup, but I can see where they're coming from. Especially when she's wearing not a lot of eyeshadow, you do have like a very clean base. For me, I would say natural makeup includes having a really good base, so good foundation, good concealer, while keeping it natural and still letting a little bit of skin peek through. I also would stray away from doing anything heavy on the eye makeup or the lips when I'm going for a no makeup look.
Oh, this is a hot question, I'm sure. So, how to become a successful makeup artist?
I think it's really different for each person's journey and what you determine success to be. For me, I work in film, I do corporate, and I do shoots constantly. I think that to me is success. I don't enjoy doing, for example, feature films. Like that's not my goal in makeup. But for some people, it can definitely be like being the key in a feature film or doing fashion week. I just think as long as you're employed constantly as a freelancer, you're succeeding.
I know being a freelancer sometimes is difficult, but if you are a hard worker, you can like nail it, no?
Yeah.
So one more question for you. How makeup artists, like the new ones, how they can find good connections?
I'm a firm believer that people are willing to help. Maybe I've had really good experiences, but I just think you don't lose anything by reaching out to somebody. So maybe there's an artist you really admire, you love their work. You can text them and be like, DM them on Instagram and be like, hey, if you're ever looking for an assistant, I would love to assist you. I just started, send them a bit of your work. And even if they're not looking for one then, they might be looking for one later. I also suggest doing assisting gigs, especially if you didn't go to school for makeup, because that's where you're gonna learn tips and tricks from more seasoned makeup artists. So you're not gonna learn all these like inside tricks from school per se or from YouTube videos, but it's little tricks that they do on set and as you're working in a fast-paced environment that I think you're going to learn the most. Thank you so much for having me. I hope you enjoyed me teaching you these natural makeup looks. And you know that the first look is perfect if you're looking for an everyday makeup. Second look, if you want to add a little bit more oomph. And the third look over here is perfect for a no makeup with some edge. Thank you for having me again.